Once seen only as destructive pests, wild boars today are not just controlled, but cultivated, supplying premium meat and materials worth over $100 million annually across modern agriculture. But have you ever wondered how millions of wild hogs are trapped, raised, and processed every single year? How do farmers turn an animal once feared for destruction into a stable source of food, and even profit? Through careful breeding and control? And once captured, what does it really take to clean, cut, and prepare wild boar meat safely enough to reach markets around the world? Today, Farming Documentary takes you inside this quiet industry to reveal how discipline, patience, and precision turned a pest into profit. Now let's explore these resilient, resource-rich animals together. Across the American South, a quiet war has been raging for decades. It isn't fought with soldiers or machines, but with fences, traps, and patience. More than 9 million wild boars roam across 39 U.S. states. They uproot crops, destroy pastures, and tear through irrigation lines with the strength of bulldozers and the intelligence of thieves. Each year, the damage climbs past $1.5 billion, a figure that no insurance can cover. Farmers have tried everything. They built electric fences humming at 7,000 volts, but the boars learned to test the current with sticks or wait for a thunderstorm when the charge weakens. They hired helicopters, spending $3,000 to $4,000 per flight to thin the herds. But as long as one female escapes, she can bear 2 litters a year, 4 to 6 piglets each. If less than 70% of the population is removed annually, their numbers surge back faster than they fall. And so, the balance shifts once again, not in favor of the farmer nor the machine, but toward a creature that learns, remembers, and adapts. A reminder that sometimes nature doesn't fight back. It simply waits. For decades, farmers have invested thousands of dollars in steel corral traps, 12 meters wide, 5 feet tall, designed to capture an entire herd at once. They are built strong, equipped with cameras and remote gates, and taunted as the most effective way to control wild boars. But if these traps are so advanced, why do their numbers keep rising and farmlands remain torn apart? In theory, the system seems flawless. In practice, most attempts fail for familiar reasons. The first is placement. Many traps are built too close to the woods, while wild boars gather near water and mud, where the soil is soft and food is rich. The second is timing. Operators close the gate too soon, catching a handful of pigs but missing the rest during their most active hours, between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. The third is handling. Captured pigs are sometimes left until sunrise, their cries echoing through the night and warning every herd within miles. These mistakes, small on their own, form patterns the boars quickly recognize and avoid. Wild boars are far more intelligent than most people realize. They remember the clang of steel, the scent of oil, and even the faint imprint of human footsteps. Each error becomes a lesson, passed silently through generations. Over time, the area around a poorly managed trap becomes dead ground, a place no animal will ever enter again. Every wrong decision costs more than the price of metal. It costs time, trust, and the delicate balance between people and the land they depend on. The real challenge isn't strength, it's subtlety. How do you make a trap disappear until the moment it closes? The answer begins long before the gate drops. For 5 to 7 nights, farmers scatter fermented corn, soaked for a week, until its sour scent drifts through the air. The gate stays open, allowing the herd to feed freely, building confidence instead of fear. Only when 80% of the herd enters naturally, and only during that window between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. should the trap be triggered. Once it closes, every minute matters. The pigs must be removed and processed within 4 hours to prevent distress calls and scent warnings from alerting others. When followed precisely, this method allows a single trap to capture 20 to 30 pigs in one night, silently and efficiently, without panic or noise. But success brings adaptation. The boars evolve with each new attempt. Some circle the traps, testing for metal scent. Others push weak panels or leap over low walls near dirt mounds. In Texas and Georgia, entire harvests have been lost to these behaviors. Bent panels, loose corners, and animals left too long inside. The frustration forced farmers to rethink not the trap, but the discipline behind it. The best systems now stand near water, reinforced with 5 or 6 foot steel panels, jump guards, and anchored corners. The ground is leveled to prevent climbing. Baiting continues for a full week to build trust, and gates close only when the herd is fully inside. Every capture is cleared quietly within 4 hours, and the trap is moved after several cycles to avoid recognition. These refinements changed everything. Capture rates have risen by more than 60%, while costs dropped by nearly a third. The fields that once fell silent now breathe again, because in this quiet contest between instinct and invention, it isn't steel or machinery that wins, but patience, guided by discipline and time. But corral traps take time, days to prepare, hours to trigger, while wild boars multiply without pause. On the edge of losing everything, one farmer found a way to stop them day and night, without supervision and with total effectiveness. Across Brazil's sugarcane belt, modern defenses had reached their limits. Farmers tried electric fences, motion sensors, and drones. Yet, the boars kept returning. The cost of repairs rose higher each season. One man, João Santos, had already lost 2 full harvests, more than $40,000, to the relentless raids. For him, there was no money left for high-tech solutions. All he had was a shovel, an excavator, and an old belief that the earth could protect itself. He began digging. The first trenches were simple, 5 feet deep, 3 feet wide, carved along the perimeter of his fields. The boars arrived that night, sniffed along the edge, and stopped. Within 2 weeks, the hoofprints that once covered his soil ended at the trench line. The results were immediate and complete. His land, for the first time in years, stayed untouched. Soon, neighbors came to watch. With no electricity, no moving parts, and no maintenance, the trench worked 24 hours a day. By the 3rd month, João's fields were safe, his yield restored, and word spread quickly. Farmers from across the region began digging their own barriers, sometimes by hand, sometimes with shared machinery. The oldest defense on Earth had beaten one of its most cunning invaders. But nature never stops adapting. After the first rainy season, the trenches began to fill with water. Mudslides softened the walls, and soon, what had been protection became danger. When the storms came, João's perfect barrier became a trap, not for boars, but for everything else. Heavy rain flooded the ditches, livestock slipped in, tractors got stuck, and one morning, even a neighbor's child fell while chasing a stray goat. Panic spread through the community. The very design that had saved their crops now threatened their safety. Fear turned into debate. Some farmers wanted to fill the ditches back in. Others believed they could be fixed. João refused to abandon the idea. Instead, he called a meeting in the town hall. Together, they redesigned the system. The trenches were rebuilt with a 5-degree slope on one side to allow drainage and safe exits. Wooden bridges crossed the widest sections, and reflective posts marked every crossing for visibility at night. The group pooled their resources, sharing equipment and labor. Within months, the scattered trenches across individual farms connected into a single continuous barrier stretching for miles. They called it the Trench Cooperative, a simple alliance built on necessity, not profit. No electricity, no gates, no technology to fail. Just soil, gravity, and human cooperation. By the end of the year, more than 200 farms were protected under this network. Rainwater drained naturally, preventing erosion, and the trenches doubled as irrigation channels during dry seasons. The Boars, faced with a barrier they couldn't dig through or jump across, moved elsewhere. João's harvests recovered, and for the first time in years, the fields stood silent at night, not from loss, but from peace. The trench soon became more than protection. It was proof that sometimes the simplest ideas outlast every modern tool. But once the land was safe, a new question emerged. What should be done with the wild boars now caught within it? If you enjoyed this video, comment 1. If not, comment 0. Your feedback helps us improve and create better videos for you. Once captured, the process begins with strict classification. Each boar is inspected on-site by wildlife control officers and veterinarians. Any animal showing signs of disease, particularly swine fever or leptospirosis, is destroyed immediately under USDA protocols to protect both livestock and people. The remaining healthy boars are sorted by weight. Those under 100 pounds are sold to small local processors. Between 100 and 200 pounds, they enter the commercial market at $1.50 to $2.50 per pound, and those above 200 pounds are sent to industrial facilities for further processing. Each carcass receives a digital ID tag for full traceability, from the field through transport to the final buyer, ensuring that every part of the animal is accounted for and safely handled. Across North America, Europe, and Asia, farmers have discovered ways to turn wild boars from agricultural threats into a valuable resource. The transformation begins not with control, but with understanding. Instead of domesticating pure wild stock, producers favor crossbreeding, mixing wild boars with hardy heritage breeds such as Berkshire and Tamworth pigs. The result is the Iron Age pig, muscular, lean, and rich in flavor, yet steady enough for farm life. This hybrid preserves the intensity of the wild while gaining the predictability required for production. Unlike conventional pork farms, these operations recreate semi-wild habitats, open pastures surrounded by natural fencing, shaded by trees, and dotted with mud wallows. Each animal roams across several thousand square meters, digging and foraging as it would in the wild. Mud bathing, a behavior often dismissed as primitive, serves a biological purpose. It cools the animal, prevents skin disease, and repels insects naturally. Farmers here don't confine. They manage space, rhythm, and instinct. Their feeding system mirrors that balance. The diet combines corn, rice bran, soy meal, and vegetable scraps, creating a sustainable loop that recycles what nearby farms discard. Instead of antibiotics, farmers use natural remedies, garlic, ginger, and mugwort, to maintain health. Every animal carries a digital ear tag, tracking growth, diet, and medical history, providing data that supports both food safety and breeding efficiency. After 10 to 12 months, the pigs reach market weight, typically 60 to 90 kilograms. Their meat is darker, denser, and richer in flavor than conventional pork, earning prices up to 3 times higher. A single sow can produce 2 litters each year, with 5 to 7 piglets per litter, ensuring continuous yield with minimal impact on the environment. Beyond profit, what sets this model apart is its practicality. The system requires less infrastructure than factory farming, yet produces premium meat with verifiable traceability. It integrates easily into small-scale rural economies and restores unused land through controlled grazing. In several regions, hybrid boar farming has become a new form of agricultural craftsmanship, mixing data-driven care with centuries-old husbandry. The result is not just a product, but a process, efficient, ecological, and resilient. And as demand for natural, traceable meat grows worldwide, the once feared wild boar is now proving to be one of agriculture's most surprising successes. Every wild boar that reaches the processing line begins with screening and inspection. At certified facilities, most located across the United States, Brazil, and China, inspectors record weight, temperature, and tag numbers before the carcass even leaves the truck. Any signs of disease or bruising send the animal straight to disposal. The rest move to preparation, where the real work begins. A process that depends less on machines and more on the discipline of the human hand. The first step is manual cutting. Butchers start at the hind legs, loosening the hide with short, controlled knife strokes. Every motion follows the grain of the muscle to avoid tearing. Wild boar hides are thick, and automated peelers can't read the curves of bone or joint. That's why the first cuts are always done with knives. Precision, not speed, defines quality. The clean removal of a hide determines the yield of both meat and skin, which is later used for leather and gelatin. Once skinned, the carcass is hoisted and rinsed with chilled water between 32 DGF to 39.2 DGF, ensuring a sterile surface before sectioning begins. Next comes primary butchering, where the carcass is divided into 4 main sections: shoulder, loin, belly, and ham. The butcher works from the shoulder down, separating along natural muscle seams rather than sawing through bone. The shoulder and front legs are trimmed for slow braised cuts or cured hams. The belly, rich in flavor, becomes wild bacon or sausage filling. The loin yields tomahawk and chop cuts for restaurants, while ribs are prepared for smoking. Each section is weighed and labeled immediately. The leaner the meat and the darker its color, the higher its classification. Premium cuts destined for export fetch $9 to $12 per pound, while domestic bulk meat averages around $5 to $7. After manual trimming, sections move to machine classification and preservation. Conveyor scanners measure thickness and assign temperature zones. Infrared sensors detect moisture and fat distribution, sorting meat by grade. Each batch enters vacuum-sealed packaging lines where oxygen is removed to extend freshness. 10 days refrigerated, up to 6 months frozen. At this stage, the label's digital ID links back to the capture site, ensuring full traceability from trap to table. Finally, the processed meat is boxed, chilled, and logged for dispatch. Facilities across North America process nearly 100,000 tons annually, most shipped to Europe and Japan for charcuterie, pâté, and specialty dishes. The remaining supply feeds high-end U.S. restaurants that promote wild boar as a sustainable alternative to pork. From rusted traps in the fields to sterile lines of stainless steel, the wild boar's journey tells a single story of people learning to work with nature, not against it. Through patience, skill, and discipline, what once destroyed the land now helps sustain it. Clean, traceable, and and wholly transformed. But beyond the wild lies another story, one of centuries-old tradition and taste. Click the video on your screen to discover how Iberico pigs are raised and crafted into the world's most prized ham. And don't forget to subscribe. Every click helps us bring more of these stories to life.